Hello, welcome to another Com Simplified series video. Today, I'm going to be talking about navigating your early years in comms. And this video has come from questions. I did a survey as well, just finding out what people in their early years, and by early years, I'm looking at people between 1 to maybe 4 to 5 years in the career, and I've gotten some personal questions. How do I do this? I feel stuck. I don't know what to do. So this video will help you in your early years to just navigate your way. What do you need to know? And as always, it comes with a guide at the end that will just provide you with resources that you can use to upskill and grow yourself as you go in your career. If this is your first time watching my video or interacting with content from this series, my name is Adedoyin Jaiyesimi. I'm a communications advisor. I work with organizations to leverage the power of communications to achieve their organizational objectives. And I also do training on strategic communications, writing, and storytelling for companies, their employees, startups, etc., etc. And then I'm also the co-founder of the Comms Avenue, which is a capacity building platform for communications professionals across Africa and beyond. We're currently over 800, I believe, yes, from 17 African countries. And I have the Comms Simplified series where I break down concepts and plans and ideas and tasks in communications to help you to be able to do your job better. So the free series is on YouTube as you're watching this now, and then there are paid courses on setup. So let's get right into today's content. So if you've read my book, From Clueless to Success, you already have a snapshot of my career journey, but I'm going to pull out a few things for the purpose of this conversation today. So how did I start out in communications? I started with an internship in a media company in 2012, very accidental, very cluelessly. And then from 2013, so I worked there for about a year. I was a freelancer, so I was doing freelance writing, editing, content creation from 2013 to 2014. And then in 2015 was my first official role in communications, like with that title, communications. And it was a part-time role as a brand communications manager in a faith-based organization. And then from 2016 to 2019, I founded my own brand communications agency where I worked with clients across several industries. It was absolutely fantastic, and I enjoyed the work that we did. But the thing is, this is what the early years were like. I struggled with imposter syndrome. There were times I was like, what have I gotten myself into? Who sent me? I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not sure I can do this. I constantly felt out of my depths, like I was being thrown into the deep end. And you'll experience that a lot in the early years of your career. And I felt clueless. Like I said, all of this is documented in my book, From Clueless to Success, which you can download using the link that you can see. But I've just highlighted this to make you see that I know what you're going through. I understand what it's like to be in the early years. And I'm just going to be showing you lessons or talking to you about lessons that I've learned, which I hope that you'll find beneficial as well. So let's go into the lessons. So lesson one is immerse yourself in all that the work requires. And the first thing that I would say is dissect the role. Now, when I became the brand communications manager at Victor Adeyemi Ministries, I literally saw my job description on my first day. So again, in my book, I share how I got the job. I knew like 4 things out of a list of 12, and I was like, oh my goodness, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. However, I knew what I was supposed to be doing, but I had competency in 4 things. So I was writing, social media. There were some things there that I really didn't even know, just to be very honest. However, it was important for me to dissect the role. So you see your role that you occupy now or you're about to occupy. What are the core tasks? Writing? Are you going to be engaging with media? Are you going to be doing stakeholder engagement? You need to be able to understand what are the core tasks for this particular role within this organization, because it differs from organization to organization. There are generic things that comms people are going to be doing, definitely. But within your organization, what are the expectations and what are your deliverables? So for me in that role, for example, a deliverable was daily devotional. I had never done a job before that required me to send out devotionals daily. I had to learn how to write devotionals. It's very interesting. And then aside from the daily devotionals, they were, I believe podcasts were like bi-weekly, if I remember correctly. Oh no, it was bi-monthly. So I had to do the bi-monthly podcast. I had to engage on social media. So you need to understand what are the deliverables. That way you know what it is that you're supposed to be doing per time and how you're going to be assessed, or when they're doing their reports and their review of your performance, you understand it. And what are your KPIs? What is the measure of success in this role? When I'm with clients in strategy sessions, I always ask this question: what does success look like in this role? Because when you have that understanding, it means that you're in the same direction. So it makes performance reviews a bit easier, I believe. So look at your current role and say, what is required of me? What are the deliverables? Day in, day out, what do I need to be doing? So that when you're even measuring your progress, you're able to say, for example, in the former role, at the end of the month, I needed to make sure that I had either 30 or 31 daily devotionals that were sent out. It was easy for me to track and say, okay, yes, tick, this was done. How many podcasts did I do this month? How many posts did I put out there? A lot of things I can't even remember. But that role, I did a lot. But you need to be able to ascertain in your role what you need to be doing. Ask questions if need be. And the second thing is research. Like I said to you, the first day of the job, I saw my job description. I was like, okay, you have two options. You either get to understand or get to know what you do not know, or you tell people that, you guys, I'm sorry, this was a big mistake, I quit. But I made the decision to learn. So I always say that it's not bad to be clueless, and it's not the end of the world if you don't know something. The problem is if you persistently stay in that state of not knowing and you don't do anything about it. And research allows you to gain information and knowledge that you can use on the job. So research, you're getting information about the particular industry. And it's so important for you as a communicator. You cannot communicate an industry that you don't understand. Whether you're in church, whether it's finance, whether it's real estate, whether it's tech, you need to understand the basics of that industry. You need to understand the ecosystem. You need to understand the competitors. And I always advise, have an understanding of not just the local context, but the global context. So in the previous role, for example, I would check out churches, or I had checked out the churches in Nigeria that were doing well on social media in Nigeria, but I also looked at globally. And the thing about doing that, it broadens your mind and perspective. You're like, oh, wow, I saw a lot of content that they were doing in abroad, for example, that we were not doing in Nigeria. And while I could not 100% copy those ideas, I could tweak and iterate and say, I like this about this brand, or what this organization or church is doing. How can I tweak it into my own context? And I love to get ideas from different places to create my own. When you do that elaborate research, it opens your mind and it helps you to even think more strategically about your work. And I'm going to talk to you later about being strategic in your role. So research the industry, the competitors, the local and global context, and communicating for that specific sector. Like I said, how you communicate for sectors differs. So if you're working in fashion, in lifestyle, it's a bit different from if you're working in an industry that is highly regulated or is very technical and specialized. You need to be able to understand those things. Yes, the broad skills will be important, but the peculiar industry skills too, will be equally as important for you. This is perhaps my favorite thing. Your curiosity is your biggest weapon in the early years of your comms career. Ask questions. There's sometimes that feeling of, oh, if I ask, they will know that I don't know. Would they say it's a stupid question? Me, I ask anyway because I don't know something and I need to be able to know. So ask questions from your peers. Ask questions from those that have gone ahead of you. Ask the questions from your bosses. I'm not afraid to ask my bosses questions. The worst they can tell me is don't ask me if the person is irritated. But there's a way you can ask that shows eagerness to learn and eagerness to know. That even if they're not able to answer your question, they're able to point you to somewhere or someone where you can get the answers. And ask from a community of professionals. The Comms Avenue is such a fantastic community for this. And not just because I'm the co-founder, but it's the truth. You have people that come and say, oh, I'm working on a campaign. I've been asked to do X, Y, Z. I'm not sure how to go about this. Who has a template for that? And you're able to get answers because you cannot know it all. I'm 10 years into my career. I definitely do not know it all. I reach out to my friends. Hey, I have to work on this project. I'm not really sure how to start. Can we do launch? Let me share my ideas with you. Let me hear. And then after the launch, I get a clearer idea or better perspective, or they point me in the direction that I need to go. But please Don't suffer in silence. I think I'm going to be saying that over and over again. Don't suffer in silence. Ask questions. And finally, get resources. In the career guide, I try to put resources there for training, books, long programs that you can use to upskill yourself. And the beautiful thing about resources is that they help you to close skill gaps. I'm going to talk about skills and auditing your skills further on. But it helps you to close skill gaps. You can realize, okay, you're not very strong at public speaking, for example, you're not very strong at strategy creation. How do you close that skill gap? Then you know that you're good at writing. How do you even get better? Every year I try to do something to improve my writing skill, whether it's to read a book or writing, register for an online or physical course, just to improve and get better at what I know, because the goal is mastery, to become a master at what it is that I do best. And when you look at skills and your resources, I like you to think about it in terms of the particular industry. So the industry skills that you need. So if you're working in law, for example, there are particular skills you need for that industry. And then the function, whether it's writing, it's public relations, it's social media. So be able to differentiate between the two. Okay, so lesson 2, hone and build on your skills. The early years of your career is the perfect time to build the foundation. And I usually recommend to start as a generalist. That allows you to explore and stretch the range of your skills so that as you go higher in your career, you're able to specialize and niche down into a particular area where you feel like I have the greatest strength, or you feel like, yeah, this is my passion. And because a lot of times we don't know in the early years, you might not be so sure of the direction. So it's good to have wide skills that give you the liberty to explore different areas, right? Because when you do different things, you're able to say, okay, I like this, I don't like this. Your mind is broadened, your skill is broadened. Yeah, so I always usually just advocate that. So, doing a skill audit, and what does this require? You need to first of all understand what you're good at. I'm good at public speaking, I'm good at XYZ. So for me, writing, I knew that I was fantastic at writing. I wasn't so good, for example, with media relations, and I had to learn media relations, building relationships with journalists, understanding what journalists wanted. And so you then have a plan to strengthen what you are good at and learn the things you are not so good at, because in the early years of your career, you cannot outsource. The things I'm not so great at, now at the stage I'm in, it's very easy for me to outsource it. But in the beginning, you may not be able to outsource it. So try and have an understanding. These areas, you don't necessarily need to become a master at them, but you need to be able to understand them, because even later on in your career, as you rise, you would realize that understanding or having a basic understanding of these things would help you even become better and perform better in your role as a strategic communicator or a communications advisor. And please always bridge the gap. Don't just say, oh, I hate writing, the end. If you hate writing and it comes and peer, I'm wondering what you're doing, because we are going to be writing. So you have to learn those things, even the things that you do not like. Force yourself to learn and to have an understanding of it. So I've broken down the skills into these three. So the com skills: writing, presentation. Presentation, because you're going to be sharing ideas to stakeholders, to your bosses. How do you present these ideas in a way that you get their buy-in, you get their agreement? It's going to be very important. I could have done these slides and just put a bunch of text on it to do this presentation, but you can see I have taken my time to design this slide. So presentation is very important. Public speaking. If you are shy, I don't like to speak in front of a crowd, and you're in comms and PR, please work on your public speaking skills. I had a speaking engagement a few days ago where I had to share on public speaking and presentation. And I was telling them like my first ever public speaking was in my role at my first job, and we had done it. I was now the head of the magazine team, and we had done this new cover. And my boss wanted me to come in front of, there was an event to unveil the cover. And my boss said, Adedoyin, you're going to present this new cover. I'm like, present to who, where, how? I ran. I was like, I cannot do this. I froze and I hid myself. Somebody else had to do it. But over the years, I've realized that, look, you're going to be speaking in the public, and a lot of times it will be impromptu. So it's better for you to develop yourself. So what I've done over the years is to hone my public speaking skills. So now I'm talking, it seems like, oh, I love how she talks. It wasn't always like this. There was the time I was super awkward. I would stammer. I would but now it's better. It's not where I want it to be, but it's better. research. This maybe should have even been like number two. Research is so important because research, it allows you to see what you don't know. There are times I've been in meetings and my boss or the client will say, "Oh, Adedoyin, this is what we want to execute and this is what we want to do. Please make it happen." I'm like, I don't know this thing. How am I supposed to know? And I'm so confused, but I can't express it in the meeting. Google. There's nothing that you cannot find on Google. There's nothing that you cannot find on YouTube. I go there and I do my research. I can go on page 10 of Google. People, I'm always fascinated by the amount of information I can find. So make sure you hone your research skills. Don't see it as, oh, this tedious, this stressful. It helps you because it broadens. See, information broadens your mind, knowledge, and it helps you to develop strategy. I'm going to do a course. Maybe my next one will be on communication strategy, where we will break it down. If you've watched my brand strategy course, I broke it down. I want to do the same thing for communication strategy because it is a core part of what you want to do. And if you want to rise in your career, you need to think more strategically. But that's for another day. Creativity and design. So in the early years of your career, you realize, depending on the organization that you work with, there is no graphic designer, so they expect you to use Canva and have design skills. While it's okay to hone your skills, I must state that it's important for you to draw the line because you cannot be the one handling content, managing social media, doing the writing, creating the designs, doing it. You will burn out. It's happened to me. You will burn out. So it's important for you to be able to communicate to your bosses and to the management that, look, let's hire a freelancer for me to perform effectively. These are the things I need to focus on. And yes, you can do that in the early years of your career. We talk about professional value. When you show that you're good at what you do and you deliver, people would listen to you and say, to perform even better and more efficiently, to add more value to this organization, to help this organization get to where it wants to go. When we employ a graphic designer, we'll be able to achieve XYZ. And you get their buying. Remember, in the last slide, I was talking to you about stakeholder buying. It's going to be very important. And then technical skills, so critical thinking, very, very important. Analytical, depending on the industry you're working with, you're going to have a lot of information to process. Sometimes your work requires you to take complex information and make it plain and simple. For example, health communications, maybe climate change, if you're in a industry that is really, really technical industry, you're going to have to be able to analyze this information, break it down, and simplify it for the final audience. It takes practice, but these are skills that you need. Industry related skills, if you're working in law, for example, just understand the terminologies and all of that. And then data. Data is so important. Data helps you with your strategy. It helps you to measure your results. It helps you to develop your messaging. It helps you to measure and benchmark. Data is critical. And then the other skills, attention to detail. See, if you don't know how to pay attention to detail as a comms and PR professional, your work will suffer because you will find unnecessary typos. You will find that you're dropping unnecessary balls. You must be thorough, thorough in your research, thorough in your plans, thorough in your proposals, thorough in execution. You need to be very thorough. You also need to collaborate because you're not going to be working alone. If you're doing internal comms, for example, you're going to be working with people from different departments. If you're doing external comms or any other type of comms, you're going to be working with vendors. You might have an agency. It's a lot. So you must be able to collaborate and leverage the synergies that come with that. And then relationship building, you have to build relationships because even in terms of advancing in your career, relationships, you will find them helpful. Relationships, when you have questions, being able to just call somebody to say, oh, I have this problem. Can you help me? Relationship building is so critical. And I've put leadership skills here because I know it's easy to say, but I just started my career. Why do I need leadership skills? Because it makes you stand out. It helps you to show initiative. Because when you think as a leader, you're thinking ahead of the pack. And remember, the goal is to differentiate yourself. A lot of times, it's not even about the core skill because you have so many fantastic communicators, writers, but it's in these soft skills that people are able to differentiate themselves and even go the extra mile. So think about these skills. Remember, this is a skill audit. Which do you have? Which are you good at? Which are you not so great at? And where do you need to bridge the gap? So like I said, in the career guide, you're going to find courses, books, but I just thought to highlight a few. writing, if you want to improve your writing skills, please, this course on Udemy, I always recommend it because it's fantastic. You have creative writing specialization on Coursera. These three books, Strong and White's Elements of Style, is a great guide for editing, for grammar. It's almost like if you're in Nigeria and you remember Brighter Grammar, but it's a more advanced and comprehensive version. But it's a small book, but very useful book. On Writing Well and Everybody Writes, I think they're great books on writing, and they tell you, they talk to you about writing on different platforms, because how you write newsletter, social media, it's very different. And writing is also changing as well. The platforms are increasing. So it just helps you to think about the perspective when writing on the different platforms. You have Communications and PR. So this Coursera is a free course. CIPR and the London School of Public Relations, they are paid and it's quite pricey. If you can afford it, by all means, do it. In the early years, for me, is to start with the free ones. And if you can save up for paid courses, live or online, please, by all means, do it. But they have a fantastic array of courses that you can leverage. These are two books. This book on marketing communications is really, really great. It's like amazing book. It was a recommended reading for my master's program, and it was really, really comprehensive. And then you have the modern guide to public relations, because again, as the world evolves, as technology evolves, the way we do PR is also changing. So that's a guide as well that you will find useful. And then social media. I really, really like viral marketing and how to craft contagious content. It was really good. So it accompanies the book Contagious. Please read it. And then the copywriter's handbook as well. You'll find a full list of these resources in the career guide, and I will share details of how to download that. So let's move on to lesson 3. And it is work on becoming strategic in your work. So the thing about communications is when you start out, you do a lot of tactical things. And by tactical things is you're handling social media, you're developing content, you're doing events, and that's fantastic. Your early years is the perfect time to ground your knowledge and understanding of tactical stuff. But you see, if you want to rise higher, if your desire is to be a communications director, chief communications officer, chief marketing officer, etc., etc., you need to be able to think strategically, because you must then be able to tie your output and the work that you are doing into the organization's objectives. We don't do sales, we don't bring money, but the work that we do must be able to align with where the organization wants to go, so that you are elevated into a position where you are a strategic advisor and where you're not just seen as a money spender. I'm almost going into the communication strategy course, but I just wanted to give you context and how even right from your early years, you can incorporate strategic thinking into your work, so that by the time you're in your year 5, year 6, it will give you access to roles that you will be amazed, just because you have paid attention to it right now. So, how can you master the art of developing strategy? Be able to diagnose and understand the nature of a problem. So, you're in a meeting or in a conversation, and they say to you, for example, the organization wants to be in the top 5 industry leaders within their ecosystem. Maybe currently they're number 10. While you're in your early years of comms, or if you want to start thinking strategically, you must be able to say, why is this organization in number 10? The organizations, the companies that are in position 1 to 5, what is the reason? Then you begin to do the research. You begin to research the company number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5. What are the executives saying about themselves? How are they engaging with their consumers? What are their consumers also saying? The target audience, what is their share of voice? What are they doing? What is their website like? What is their content like? You begin to then analyze. Remember, we talked about analytical skills, critical thinking skills. That helps you to think, and see, the next point is that you then carry out in-depth information. You talk to people in the industry, you read insights. Okay, if we want to move into the top 5, where is this industry going? What would an industry leader need to be doing? Or what are these areas that we've not yet gone into? And then you gain useful consumer insights. And that's so important, because remember we spoke about data. You can't create strategy without data. You can't create strategy without talking to the end users. And sometimes you have the budget to be able to do like interviews and focus groups. And other times it's just talking to the people you know. So for example, I remember a clothing brand that was well renowned decades ago. but has lost a lot of its brand equity because of upcoming brands and wanted to do like a refresh. So I started to talk to people that I knew in my network that used the brand when they were younger and then maybe still patronize the brand now. So I asked them, why did you like the brand as a kid? What did you like about what they did? What do you think about the brand now? What do you think they can do better? And then if they're still using the brand, why are you still using the brand when there are other options available? When you talk to people and gain those insights, you will see things that you would not necessarily see. It's all about increasing your perspective. It's all about what the end user, the target audience, or the stakeholder is looking out for. You're not the stakeholder or the end user. You should not make assumptions. So you should be able to speak to them. And this would even allow you. So even in your early years, you can get your friends, for example, or if your organization wants to target older generation, you have your grandma, your maybe you have a network of, I don't know, maybe your parents they have a WhatsApp group with older people. Say, I really just want to ask questions, and you get those insights from them. Trust me, it will make a lot of difference in your work. And then when you do all of this, you're now able to develop a strategy to solve the problem because when you diagnose, you do your research, you gain insights, you're like, oh, this is what the problem is. This is what I believe we can do. Again, because you're in your early years, it's not like it might not be 100% perfect, but it might be 100% accurate because you see, the thing about strategy is that there is no, what's the word now? If you have a great strategy, it's a great strategy. It's not a respecter of, oh, you only have 2 years experience. Yes, there's some things that experience gives you an edge for, but there's some things that just being able to go through the process and be able to think outside the box then gives you an edge that you can leverage. So you develop your strategy, but the hack is it needs to align to the objectives of the organization. And that's where a lot of times we miss it. So right now, as you're in your early years, think about what this organization wants to achieve. So a lot of you that are working in 9 to 5, 2022, the organization has the goals that they want to have. Maybe they want to increase market share, maybe their share of voice with millennials, for example, or they want to expand into sub-Saharan Africa. That is the overarching objective. So everything that you do in your work must help that organization in the direction that it wants to go. And that's where it shows that you are a strategic communicator and thinker. And so everything you begin to do, so in your social media, in your online content, how does this help the organization to achieve its goals, to expand? How am I creating awareness in sub-Saharan African countries? What networks, what inroads or what media am I able to leverage on for my organization to talk about the story, what it is that we're trying to do? There's so much I can say. Again, there will be a course on this. I really, really love strategy, so I'm going to really take my time to break it down. But I hope this helps you to see how you can begin to think strategically right now, even where you are, and then understand how to collate and interpret data. I think I've spoken about that. Lesson 4, don't downplay on the soft skills. The hard skills, the competencies, very, very essential. But you see the soft skills, they're one of the things that will make you stand out. Remember, we spoke about leadership, spoke about relationship building. So nurture and invest in relationships, not just within your department or your organization, but even outside of it. Again, the Comms Avenue is a fantastic place to connect with communicators in different organizations, in different industries, and different countries across Africa and even outside of Africa. What this helps you to do, again, it broadens your mind. I find I'm always fascinated when I speak to my friends that are working in different industries, listening to the campaigns they're doing, listening. It gives you ideas. You see, the thing about creativity is if you have a bank, the time you need it, you're able to pull out because you've like opened your mind. It's almost like your brain is a sponge, and the time you need it, you're able to pull on it. And it's still the conversations, still the relationships. It helps you also in your work. So you want to leverage media, you want to go into a new country, you have a contact in Ghana, for example, you're able to collab. This potential is limitless in a nutshell. Understand the internal dynamics of the organization you work with. And this is something that you need to understand in your early years in comms. I don't particularly like office politics. I stay away from it. But you see, You need to be able to know the organization you work with and who are the power brokers and the influential people. And this do not always have to be the senior people at the top. It might just be somebody that they respect, somebody that maybe has been there for such a long time, someone that commands respect. Who do I need their buy-in the work that I am doing? Like, it is very, very important, especially when you want to bring in new ideas. You need to be able to understand, map out the stakeholders. Your work, yes, your work needs to be visible to your supervisors, but you may be in an organization where the manager or the head of the department needs to also see that you are working. So how do you show that you're delivering results as well? So it's you understanding the peculiarities of the organization and how you can function effectively within that organization, because it would help you as well. Mastering how to work graciously under pressure. This one is very important because I can guarantee you that you're going to be thrown into the deep end so many times. I can't count the number of times in my early years where I'll be so confused, I'll be so stressed, especially when you're doing campaigns or you're doing events, you're managing multiple people. But you must have emotional intelligence so that you know how to deal with people. If you're this kind of person that you easily snap at people when you are stressed, and that used to be me, oh my God, I will frown my face. I'm like, oh my God, this thing is not working, especially when things are not going well. But I learned that, look, the things that you say when you're under pressure and when you're stressed, you can't take it back. So emotional intelligence, how do I communicate displeasure or dissatisfaction without being rude? Please don't be rude to anybody. I don't want to know what they've done. Don't be rude. Don't be condescending to anybody. And don't in an email be rude as well. I've seen people do some funny things and they send some messages via WhatsApp and email. I was like, this person, do they even realize that this can be used against them at any time, or this can disqualify them from an opportunity? Because see, this world that we live in, it might sound like a cliche, but it's literally a small world. And somebody says, oh, I want to hire Sarah. I hear that she's very great. And like, Sarah that was rude to me, she wrote me this stinker, da, 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 and the person presents it. Now, you will not be there to tell your side of the story immediately, because that person you're speaking to is a person that they respect. And this person Sarah has been rude to this person. It's like, oh, okay, Sarah has been rude to this person. They're not going to ask what happened, or even if they ask, they may not even get the context. So I'm like, avoid it altogether. Be professional, be courteous. One thing I've mastered doing is expressing my displeasure in a way that you can see that I'm annoyed, but I'm not abusive in any way. I'm not condescending or rude. Please, emotional intelligence, especially when you're starting out, master it now. It's not when you become a communications director. It will cost you a lot more if you're going to be mastering it further down in your career. So really, really pay attention to the soft skills. Now, let's look a bit at planning your career. Of course, there are no hard and fast rules. Our journeys are different, but I feel like this can give you some sort of guide that you can then build on, which is my goal for this video, to be honest. And really understand yourself. What do you want? Where do you want to go? Now, understandably, you might be very clueless. You might be like, Adedoyin, I'm not even sure right now, and that's fine. I think that your early years are the fantastic time for you to explore, because you're able to see what you like and what you don't like. You're able to experience different industries, different functions. You're able to do different things, and that helps you to make a decision later on. Okay, I like this, I don't like this. So for me, for example, I was able to see that communication strategy was something that I love doing. I enjoyed the process. I love to teach. I love to train. So now that I'm more niched in my career, that's what I'm focusing on advisory, strategy advisory, training, and capacity building. For some of you, you might feel like PR is what I want to do. I want to focus on that, but start by exploring. And please go through the process in your early years and hone your skills. Some people see me now and see things I'm able to do, and they're like, oh, I want to be like you. I'm like, yeah, that's great, but this is taking me 10 years. Obviously, I'm not saying that it will take you 10 years, but I've gone through process. I sometimes, Facebook shows you some things, your previous memories, and I see things that I wrote 5 years ago, and I'm like, I used to write like that. Oh my goodness. But the thing is, I've grown so much, and I'm growing, and I continue to evolve, because you just never arrive. There's always things to learn. So make sure you're honing your skills, you're gaining mastery. So for me, writing, it's important for me to gain mastery in writing, gain mastery in strategy communications, gain mastery in public speaking. So I'm even always looking for ways to improve my public speaking and presentation skills, because I'm going to be doing this a lot, either virtually or in person. And I recommend going from being a generalist to being a specialist. So what some people do is they start out with agency. Not everybody will be able to work in an agency. Not everybody likes agency work, but you can map your career in such a way that you're able to have an experience of the broad skills. Now, if you're not working in an agency, a good way to do that is volunteering, because that allows you to experience different areas. So you can volunteer and say, okay, you know what, for this volunteering experience, I want to focus on PR. For this volunteering experience, I want to focus on writing. Just find ways to explore. That's really my point in all of this. And in your 1 to 3 years is where you should really pay attention to building your strong foundation. It's going to be stressful. You're going to be stretched, but your future professional self is going to say a very big thank you because you spent time to build a strong foundation. So have the knowledge of the core functions, have the understanding, develop the core skills. Writing, for example, don't play on. So there's if you go back to the slide where maybe I should just quickly go back to that slide to buttress the point. So this slide, for example, your writing skills, make sure you become a master because it's a critical part of what you do as a communicator. Presentation, public speaking, research, hone those things very well. Make sure you master them. And then you can then have knowledge of the functional areas. And in the career guide, I take you through the functional areas, then all of that. So you see that in the guide as well. And then going to year 3 and 5 is when you become to now just hone and develop your expertise in the core function of area and the skills as well. And then 5+ is when you're like, okay, you know what? I want to focus on health communications. I want to focus on this industry. I don't advise to start with that, although some people do, because again, like I said, there's no hard and fast rule. But the idea is, think about it. If in the early years you start and you're like, health communication, I'm going to focus on health, I'm working in health, I'm interested in this. What then happens if 5, 7 years? Because you're a human being that is evolving, but like, okay, I'm done with health. I want to move into something else. The problem is that because you've developed so niche, you may not have developed range. There's range that being able to work in different industries and different briefs gives you that you cannot get from working in one specific industry. So when you now want to pivot later, it's not like you will not be able to learn. It just means that you need to put in extra work to be able to learn it, as opposed to if you had built the foundation where you have that basic general knowledge that you can then build on later. But like I said, do what works for you, but these are the things to consider when you're mapping out your career plan and thinking about where it is that you want to go, the skills that you need to have, and also how to get there. And I also want to touch on your professional value, because when I speak to people in their early years of comms, there's a way that they downplay themselves, which I don't think is good. Yes, you have 1 year or 2 years experience, you're just starting up, but there's value that you're bringing to the table. There are things that you know. There's a new perspective that you're bringing, your curiosity, your ability to learn quickly and on the job and to improve on it. Those are things that you bring to the table, and you should own it and be confident in that, because anybody who is a master today started as, an apprentice. So if you read my book, for example, I didn't start out as an expert. I've grown over the years. So it's important for you to have a good professional self-worth. And it starts with developing your self-confidence. Even if you're just starting out, be confident. Be confident that you can do this work. You can do excellently well. One thing I'm confident about myself is that even if I don't know something, just give me Google. I will find the information. There's nothing I cannot learn. Let me just put it like that. That is my mindset. I don't care how technical or difficult you say this thing is. There's nothing I cannot learn. And another thing I'm very confident about is no matter how complex something is, as long as I'm able to understand it, I can break it down and I can communicate it in simple terms. That's my superpower. And then, of course, my writing skills. You need to be sure and be confident. And remember, you hone the things that you are strong at, but be able to identify it right now. I'm good at this. And even the things you feel like I can do better, it's okay. You can learn it, but don't belittle your skills. Don't belittle where you are, your process, your journey. Please don't do that. Have a good work ethic and make excellence your standard. We've spoken about soft skills. There are people that are great in terms of the tactics, in terms of the functions of the role, but they have terrible work ethic. They're not dependable or reliable. Their work is shabby. There's always typographical errors in the things they send. You're not going to go very far with that. So paying attention to detail, if you work with me, for example, my team members, they know me. You can't submit a document to me that has two different kind of fonts. It's not aligned. There's fonts 12, font size 12 here, font size 16. There is no symmetry with the headline. Those things may be tedious to do, but you see, if you discipline yourself to be able to do those small things over time, it becomes next level. Like you won't think twice in doing it. I remember I interned somewhere in 2020, and the the boss, he sent back a document because it was documents were shabby, and I was like, this thing I do now with ease. Like, if you send me a document, I can spot the errors in formatting and in syntax, and you're like, does this really matter? Yes, it does, especially when you're working in highly technical fields. So this is a great time for you to develop it. And the thing about it is that once you begin to develop it, you work on it now, it's easier down the line. It becomes second nature to you. You don't have to think about it because you have honed the skill. Be strategic about how you showcase your work and position yourself for opportunities, especially on LinkedIn, within your organization and within the key stakeholders that matter. Don't say that your results will speak for you. No, do the work, but also communicate the impact, communicate the results. Let it show in your CV, let it show on your LinkedIn or on your platforms, because those are the things you will use to access opportunities that are hidden or they are not publicized, so to speak. Have a healthy way of handling mistakes and failure. This was something I had to learn because I used to be so hard on myself. Oh my God, I'll make a mistake and it will feel like the end of the world. But I had to realize, look, mistakes come with the territory. I still make mistakes today. Obviously, I don't make the same mistakes that I made early years in my career, but I still make mistakes. And the perspective is, okay, I've made a mistake. What happened? Why did this happen? What can I do, or what do I need to put in place not to make this mistake again? And I keep it moving. Yes, there's sometimes some mistakes make me cry, because I can't, maybe I disappointed myself or because of the things that happened as a result of that mistake. But I cried, I wiped my tears, I learned the lessons, and I keep it moving. You have to keep it moving. There's no, if you speak to any expert or any person that is, 10, 20 years, they've made mistakes, they've faced roadblocks, but it's not the end of the world, trust me. And then as you rise, please be bold enough to negotiate the pay that you want. Pay is something that I am now passionate about because you undervalue yourself, you're not able to command the income that you want, and you're stressed, and the money is not commensurate to the work that you're putting in. None of that. So again, it still builds on your self-confidence, how you're able to hone your skills, the value that you're adding, and how you're communicating that value. It all ties together. And be a constant learner. You need it. Communications is constantly evolving. The channels are constantly evolving. The technological tools are constantly evolving. You need to evolve constantly. So a community like the Comms Avenue, for example, allows you to stay abreast, learn new things, not just within Nigeria, but even across Africa. And that knowledge is so important. I'm so big on broadening your perspective, especially in your early years. So don't restrict yourself to your country. Don't restrict yourself to what happens within your industry. Think bigger, think wider, consume information from different industries, from different countries, from different regions, because that would help you do your work better. So let me just give you some brief takeaways. I hope this has been very useful and helpful for you. So have a broad idea of where you want to go and possible ways of getting there. There are many ways to get to a destination, right? And especially career wise. And even now with social media and LinkedIn, you can have something that just happens, an interaction, a connection that cuts short your process, but have a broad idea. So I want to become a communications director in the next 2-3 years. So what I always advise people, go on LinkedIn, search the profiles of the people that occupy the position you want to be in. What skills did they list there? What certifications? What common thread do you see? And then when you're doing your skill audit and you're like, okay, I've not developed mastery of being a spokesperson. How can I develop this? And then you look for opportunities. So maybe you look for a course on being an effective spokesperson. And then you begin to keep an eye out on opportunities to develop being a spokesperson. And what is being a spokesperson is you're the person speaking for the company. So you improve your public speaking skills, you speak on behalf of someone, you begin to practice in your room. Because when the opportunity comes, it might just happen just like that. But because you've been doing these things, you won't be so nervous. And then begin your career journey with the eagerness to learn and soak in everything. Please, this is the perfect time to soak in as much as possible. I always advise the early years, just learn, just learn. Later on, you can be sifting. I'm like, okay, I don't need this, I don't need that, but learn as much as you can. It will make you stand out. It would give you access to opportunities that other people would not have access to. The fact that I have a broad range of experience working on projects in different drifts, different countries, really helps me in the work that I do now, even as a communications advisor. People say, oh, she's good, she's done this, she's achieved this, and you learn as well. It broadens your mind, it helps you to increase your network, but just be eager to learn and soak in everything. And then work on developing the core skills and competencies is so important, and develop mastery. Remember, mastery takes time. Don't compare yourself to somebody that has 10 years experience. They're like, oh, this person is such a master. Look at me. I'm not good. No, they took time. They took time. They took time. And don't abort your process. Stay through with it. Hone it. Focus on capacity building. And then it's okay not to know everything. Nobody knows everything. What's not okay is not to do anything about it. So you ask questions, you ask for help. It's perfectly okay to ask questions. I rather you ask, and I tell my team members, it's better for you to ask me this question than to suffer in silence and assume. I really dislike assumptions. Oh my God. And then have a professional tribe and community that you can grow with in your career. So I've given you Comms Avenue. There's Women in PR Ghana. There are professional associations. It helps you because you're learning from people's journeys. You're able to reach out to a colleague when you're stuck, when you're stranded, even in times where you've made mistakes. At times I've called my professional friends, you guys believe what just happened to me? And they let me rant and they give me perspective. I'm like, no, what are they doing? Look, okay, this has happened. This is what you need to do. And, I find courage from that and finally be confident. See, the power of self-confidence. You'll be so surprised that there are people that don't know as much as you do, but they are occupying higher positions or they have better opportunities just because they are just confident. And that confidence opens doors for them. The confidence comes from you. So if you need to talk yourself up, hype yourself, do affirmations. Sometimes I look into my mirror and I think, you are a great, fabulous communicator. There's nobody like you. I say to hype myself, and I have my friends that always hype me. When they talk about me, I just laugh. But it's good. It gives you a healthy. I'm not saying you should not be cocky or proud, but just have a good, healthy, professional self-worth. Like me, I just know that, see, there's nothing, I can learn it, I can deliver, and I know that I deliver excellently. So be confident, be consistent, please be consistent, be dependable, and be dedicated to delivering results because, like I said, these are the things that will make you stand out. Okay, so you have the early years in comms career guide, which I've poured out into it to put there resources, links, tips, and all of that that would help you. So please download the guide, read through it, and I use it even as you go in your journey. Use it to help you navigate where you need to be, the skill gaps that you need to close, the resources there, training, certifications, associations, all the works is actually in there. So please download it from bit.ly/comms career guide. And please feel free to share the resource as well. It's a free resource. I want you to get to as many people as possible. Share this video as well. Share your feedback with me. And really, thank you so much for watching. It is always a privilege for me to share the knowledge that I have. I love to share my knowledge. I really believe in generosity and sharing what I know because I got to where I am today because people were generous to sharing their knowledge with me. They were generous in giving me opportunities. So this is my way of giving back. So I hope that this has been beneficial for you. If you have any further questions, you can engage with me on any of these platforms. You can also download the career guide, reach out to me on LinkedIn, drop a comment, share a review. Yes, please share a review so that more people get to watch this, but please don't wallow in silence. One thing I'm going to do with this particular one, I don't do this for all my Comms Simplified series, but for this one, I'm going to host a Zoom conversation where I would answer live questions as well. So on my LinkedIn page, depending on when you watch this, I'm going to share details of that on my LinkedIn page. But even if you watch this after the live Zoom session, I will do a recording as well and make sure that I also post it on YouTube for the benefit of others. So I hope this has been useful for you. and watch out for the remaining videos or other videos in the Com Simplified series. By the way, I hope you watched my brand strategy course, which is on Seller. I think it's a fantastic course on brand strategy, but there are also other courses here on YouTube, press release writing, communications planning that you can use. And next few videos, we're going to be looking at communication strategy, just looking at different ways to help you to be a strategic communicator and develop the strategy that you need. Thank you again. My name is Adedoyin Jaiyesimi, and it's been a great pleasure to engage with you. And I look forward to connecting with you even beyond here. Bye.